the honourable member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pleasure to be here today, and certainly a pleasure to speak in the House of Commons. And nice to see you again as well. Madam Speaker, I stand today to speak to the utter hypocrisy of the Liberal government and to shine a light on the utter disrespect for law-abiding Canadians and victims of crime. The government, with the prop-up support of the NDP, are attempting to push through Bill C-5, which will see the removal of mandatory minimums for serious criminal offences in this country. Let me be clear on this. The Liberals are eliminating mandatory prison time. Mandatory prison time for criminals who commit robbery with a firearm, weapons trafficking, and drive-by shootings. Their argument is that they are doing this because they feel these laws are unfair, Madam Speaker. Unfair. I can't make this up. What would the victims of these crimes consider unfair? I surely think they will feel the person or persons that traumatized them through violent acts now being set free by this Liberal government is what is actually unfair. Can you imagine being the victim of a drive-by shooting, losing a loved one, or being robbed, or held at gunpoint? Imagine this, Madam Speaker. These are the mandatory sentences that the government is trying to get rid of. The Liberals are more interested in standing up for criminals than actually defending our communities. The blatant hypocrisy is apparent with the fact that they willingly want to let gun crime perpetrators free sooner so that they can go out into our communities and wreak havoc again, yet stand in righteous defense of enacting gun laws in this country that only serve to punish law-abiding citizens. Madam Speaker, let's look at some of the offences that the Liberals feel that the punishment is unfair for. C-5 eliminates a number of mandatory minimums relating to gun crimes. Here they are: robbery with a firearm, extortion with a firearm, weapons trafficking, discharging firearm with intent, using a firearm in commission of offences, and possession for purpose of weapons trafficking. When you hear the list out loud as parliamentarians, you must ask yourself, is this seriously what this government wants for Canadians? Can a government seriously think that mandatory sentences are unfair for these types of crimes? You might ask yourself, are we actually living in Canada? Or if any of this is real to begin with? Sadly, Madam Speaker, this is real. And the members of this House have to stand and speak on this. And it's, quite frankly, it's making our country unrecognizable. The Liberal government believes they are unfair. That's how they're putting it. They have no concern for the victims of these crimes. Their only concern is actually for the criminals that perpetrated the acts to begin with. Here are a few other examples of who this Liberal government feels are being mistreated by the justice system. The Liberals are eliminating 6 mandatory minimums in the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act that targets drug dealers. Here they are: trafficking or possession for the purpose of trafficking, importing and exporting or possession for the purpose of exporting, production of a substance schedule 1 or 2. So let me say the last one again: production of a substance schedule 1 or 2. Examples here would be heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, and crystal meth. If I was not standing here as the Member of Parliament for the great riding of Miramichi Grand Lake, and I was actually home in the community, maybe at Tim Hortons having a coffee, upon hearing this, I would think that it had to be wrong, and there could be no way that any of this was true. As what government could ever think that someone that produces a poison like crystal meth should be considered treated unfairly because they had to serve a mandatory sentence for their crime. Crystal meth is pure poison. It's creating rot and decay in every community, including all across rural Canada. The problem is so vast in the region of Miramichi that the public is left scratching their heads on a good day. Law enforcement clearly don't have an answer for it at present, and it's very complicated, but this issue is really complicating life in Canada. And how can you take the people that produce it and not give them mandatory sentences? Like, they're just going to keep doing it. You know, Madam Speakers, the member opposite that vote for this bill should be utterly ashamed when they go back to their home communities knowing that the plague and the rot of crystal meth abuse is rampant across the country, and it would be in their backyards too, because it's everywhere in this country. The evil individuals that prey on their fellow man with the production of this drug should do every minute of time that we can give them to keep them off our streets and hopefully keep them from enslaving more people with this highly addictive poison. Canadians will have to try to mentally process how this government could feel that a meth producer is being treated unfairly, but at the same time, they also must process how the government feels about other criminals. Again, Madam Speaker, did you say one? So I'm almost done my speech. Madam Speaker, I want to say that as a member of the opposition, we're not supporting this. We want people that are going to produce this types of poison to be behind bars, because that's where they should be. And if you're going to commit crimes with weapons and firearms, then you need to have mandatory sentences as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'll remind the honourable member that I have no intention of producing such crimes, but questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Brentford. Well, I'm sorry. Brentford. Oh, okay, I was on the right track.
Through you, Madam Speaker, to my honourable colleague, you mentioned, you referenced C-5 and how it impacts the trafficking of very serious drugs, fentanyl, carfentanil, cocaine, crystal meth. C-5 takes away the mandatory minimum penalties. It also opens up the possibility now of conditional sentence considerations, house arrest. Knowing what we know about drug traffickers plying their deadly trade in the comfort of their own home, how do you feel the government's narrative with respect to community safety is now being compromised?
The honourable member, just a reminder that I don't have feelings in this debate. The honourable member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for the question. I mean, well, that's really the crust of it. I mean, really, Madam Speaker, the people that make this poison are not always the ones that go out and distribute it. So if we're letting the people that make it sit home on house arrest, guess what they're going to do? They're going to continue making it. And then they're going to continue finding new people to sell it, and then more and more Canadians are going to become addicted to things like fentanyl and crystal meth. So I think there's an ideological difference in what our side of the floor is saying, but Madam Speaker, what are we doing in this? Like, why in this country would we be protecting criminals and the production of things like crystal meth? We have to put them in jail. That's where they belong.
Questions and comments.